What's up, Lantern fans? It's the Emerald Enthusiast, coming at you once again with another action figure review. This time I'm taking a look at the McFarlane Collector Edition Platinum version figure of Green Lantern Alan Scott. It took me a while to find two of these, but now that I have one to keep mint in package and the other to bust out for a review, let's take a look at the package details. On the bottom front, it says DC Multiverse, Green Lantern Alan Scott. There is the Platinum Edition sticker. On the side here, it says McFarlane Collector Edition. There's product information on the bottom. On the opposite side, there's a partial window, and it says Green Lantern Alan Scott. Another partial window at the top. And on the back, we get this absolutely gorgeous artwork by Alex Ross. This is one of the most iconic images of Alan Scott. Overall, I like the packaging of this figure, although I think it could have been better. Alan is partially obscured, and there's too much space taken up by the accessories. And I also believe that the inner plastic has damaged the edges of the trading card here. That looks like the case to me. And I've heard lots of collectors say that the inner plastic is too tight on their cards, and this has resulted in creasing and bent corners. We'll see if that's the case with this card in just a second. And with no further ado, now it's time to bust this figure out of the package and see what's inside. Let's have a look at the peg base, and you'll notice one thing right away. The DC logo is painted as opposed to the basic peg bases, which just have a glossy finish for the DC logo. So that's a nice touch for this figure. Unfortunately, I was correct about the trading card. You can see that both of the upper corners are damaged. It is a glossy card, by the way, and I do like the Alex Ross art. And overall, I like this concept. And this base for the card, this like display base here, is really cool. It says DC. Once again, the DC logo is painted. So I like the collector-centric feel of these accessories. But let me just say this, if McFarlane can do something like this, they should be able to add a penny sleeve and a top loader on the inside of the packaging to protect the trading cards. The back of the trading card features a brief biography of Alan Scott. If you'd like to read this, just hit pause and do so now. Another minor criticism that I have is I think that there are too many of these clear rubber bands holding the figure in place. It's actually secure within the inner plastic. It really didn't need these rubber bands across the torso. Let's have a look at the accessories now, and we have this flaming ball of energy that fits over the hand. The fist just ports into this, and that signifies the Green Lantern energy. We also have this personal power battery, and this is accurate to the comics. This is supposed to represent a railroad lantern, and I think it does so effectively. Although I like this translucent green plastic, I wish that the whole thing weren't translucent. Some metallic paint really would have added to the comic accuracy, but I do appreciate the sculpting. And here we see Alan Scott out of the package and ready to rumble. This figure is magnificent in so many ways. It is a very attractive piece to add to your Green Lantern or DC Comics collection. However, there are some minor articulation issues, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at the loose details of this release from McFarlane Toys. Let's have a look at the lower body now, and you can see what separates this from the base figure, and that is this green airbrushing that has been applied to the figure to look like the green energy from the ring is shining all over his costume. There's plenty of good details on the boots as well. The paint applications on the yellow and red areas are tightly applied. There's no paint dripping, so I appreciate that. And as you can see, that green airbrushing is all done in a way that makes it seem like it's coming from the ring. I appreciate the musculature here on the lower body. As you can see, there's plenty of good sculpting on the quadriceps. There's wrinkles sculpted into the hip area. I appreciate those details as well. Perhaps the hamstrings could have used just a little more sculpting, but that's a very minor complaint. And there are portholes on the bottom of the feet that will allow you to put the figure on the peg base. Let's have a look at the torso now, and this has been executed extremely well. You can see some of the wrinkles that have been sculpted around the pectoral muscles. And the Green Lantern symbol is very comic accurate. This is very indicative of what Martin Nodell first drew. I don't mind this just being paint and not a sculpted symbol because that is the way that it should look. And even though the cape covers the back, there are still wrinkles on the back of the shirt. And I appreciate that attention to detail. You can see that the cape is inserted into the back of the figure. And just like with the lower body, you can see this airbrushing that has been applied to the figure to make it seem like the ring is glowing. Now let's have a look at the arms. And as you can see, this is very comic accurate. This looks like a shirt, not a Green Lantern uniform, and that's the way that it should be. This one has a little bit of extra paint here, but you can see all of these wrinkles up and down the forearm and the biceps. And even though there's definition on the arms, it's not so pronounced to make it look like it's skin tight, because it shouldn't look that way on this type of costume. Here you can see the musculature on the left arm. This certainly has an element of realism, and it's very reflective of the original concept by Martin Nodell. Now let's have a look at the cape, and the detail on this is outstanding. Look at all of these wrinkles that have been sculpted into this, and the colors are accurate to the comics. Now, it is a rubbery material. It is not soft goods. Here you see the collar, and that's been sculpted very well. So it can throw the figure off balance a little bit because it is heavy. However, I'm very happy about this level of detail. Now let's take a look at the all-important Green Lantern ring. So I'm going to show you several different angles of this, and I will say that overall I do appreciate the sculpting. However, I do think that it is very slightly undersized. Here's a different angle, and you can definitely see the railroad lantern motif in the ring. And here's yet another angle. I'm very happy with the color choice, and the paint applications are very exact, so I'm thankful for that as well. Now let's have a look at the head sculpt, and this is obviously a much younger Alan than we see with the Alex Ross artwork. This is not based on JSA number 77. The sculpting on the hair is magnificent. Look at all of that detail. You can see the individual strands. The sculpting on the mask looks good. I like that little bit of windswept hair at the top. And you can see that the green has been airbrushed over the hair and the side of the face. I really appreciate this deep purple paint color that complements the cape so well. Here's a close-up of the face, and I'm really glad that McFarlane didn't use an angry expression. I don't think that would have been fitting for Alan here. The face is stern and focused, and the solid white eyes give the figure a touch of mystery, and I really like that as well. So now let's take a look at articulation. And there is the midfoot hinge, as you can see here. And the ankles move backwards and forwards easily, so you can get him into a good flying pose. There's pivoting at the ankle, but no articulation at the top of the boot, and there's no quadricep swivel. There's double jointed knees. Be very careful that you don't damage the cape when you articulate these. So you can certainly get him into a good running pose. In terms of the hip articulation, you can get the figure to kick forward that far. Once again, we see the ratchet joints in the figure's hips, and in this case, that gives the figure plenty of articulation with the hips. He can step back, and you can get him to do a full split. So if you want to get the figure into a deep side kicking pose, you certainly have that option. The waist pivots back and forth. Mine is a little tight, so I'm going to be careful here. And there is swiveling in the upper torso. You can get the figure to rock back this much, so I certainly think that will hit the mark for a flying pose, although I could only get my figure to crunch forward this much. There's rotation at both of the wrists, and you can get the hands to move backward and forward, and that certainly helps with a ring-slinging pose, as well as holding the lantern. The figure has double jointed elbows, and you can get them into this angle. There's also a bicep swivel on both arms. You can raise the arms up at the shoulder joint this much. So there is the wingspan, and you can get him into the big power pose that really looks good for Alan. And he does have 360 degrees of rotation. The head moves side to side easily. It moves up this much, it moves down this much, and there is a considerable amount of head tilting, and the head is not hindered by the collar, and I'm very thankful for that. And now some final thoughts on this figure. I've seen some mixed reactions online about the Platinum Edition figures overall. It's similar in nature to the variant cover argument. Some collectors savor the chase, and they like having another piece for their collections. Other collectors think that figures like this are unnecessary cash grabs. I fall into the former category, especially since I think that Alan Scott, the first titular Lantern, is dramatically underrepresented when it comes to collectibles. I hope that eventually we'll see Alan in the Sentinel, New 52, and Kingdom Come costumes. However, for now, I'm very happy with this classic version of Alan. As for the ring effect on the Platinum Edition figure, I think it looks outstanding. It may not be worth the purchase price of another figure to you, but it certainly was to a collector of all things Green Lantern like me. I've noticed that more of these are starting to become available online. If you're in the market for this figure, take your time and don't overpay. Ask questions about the packaging and see if the seller will take a best offer. I've also noticed that a lot of big box retailers are putting a lot of McFarlane figures, even ones that are in high demand, on sale after a certain period of time. This is probably due to McFarlane pumping out so many figures. And if you decide to buy one of these figures, happy hunting, and I hope you enjoy your figure as much as I enjoy these two. I certainly hope you have enjoyed this review. If so, please like and subscribe. Stay tuned for some articulation shots, and also remember to catch me on the Emerald Echo podcast, which is part of Multiverse Musings, the vidcast, and that's available right here on YouTube. And I'll be back to the internet with more Green Lantern-related content soon. But until we meet again, this has been the Emerald Enthusiast, and I'll leave you with this. And I shall shed my light over dark evil, for the dark things cannot stand the light of the Green Lantern.